Hi there. Come on in. It is Thursday night, September 30th, 2004. Michigan's archery season for deer opens tomorrow. Duck hunting opens in the northern lower peninsula on Saturday. You can find the adventure when you go outdoors. But for news and information about hunting and fishing in Michigan, it's coming up in the next half hour. Fred will talk about ethics in the law. I have outdoor news in my guides report. So stay tuned. I'm Zachary Trost, and you're watching The Practical Sportsman.
From the rugged shores and woodlands of the north, it's history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fishery. To the farmlands of the southern counties we'll look around, my friend, and all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan. And sometimes when the moon brings out the diamonds in the snow, and the stillness of the forest lies encased in Arctic cold, the wind might whisper through the trees, listen if you can. It tells you all the beauty in the state of Michigan.
There has been quite a controversy about mountain lions or cougars, where they are and where they came from. There was a real interesting article in the Beyond Michigan page saying that pet tigers are a growing threat in the United States. Animal welfare experts say there are up to 10,000 illegal tigers that people have as pets. That's more than double the number of the endangered cats that live in South Asia where they're native. Why are they dangerous? Well, for starters, a mature tiger eats about 20 pounds of flesh every day. And here's a statistic I wasn't aware of. Since 1990, tigers and other big cats have killed 11 people and attacked another 61 in the United States. That's something to think about. Well, you can read these and a variety of interesting articles in the current issue of the Michigan Outdoor News.
This week's question of law has to do, I guess, with a landowner taking things into his own hands a little bit. Cliff Salient from Paw Paw wrote, he said, if I find a tree stand on my property from someone that is trespassing, can I confiscate it until the situation is resolved permanently? Okay, I'm going to answer this question, Cliff, based on the classic legal definition of larceny that we learned in law school, and that is, quote, the felonious taking and carrying away from any place the personal property of another without his consent by a person not entitled to possession thereof, with the intent to deprive the owner of the property and to convert it to the use of the taker or some person other than the owner. Okay, that's a mouthful, but let's break this down, because what you're toying with when you take something that belongs to somebody else, you're toying with larceny here. But this means that, you could steal property from a guest you've invited into your house, and that would be larceny if you take something that they brought. I don't think a trespasser is any different in that respect. The tree stand is still the property of that uninvited guest. It's not your tree stand. Now, in fact, you don't know who owns it. You may have an action for trespass against that person, but you can't legally take his personal property as punishment and keep it forever. Only the courts can punish him by taking away his property. But let's review those elements that constitute larceny, because a person has to do all of those things, all 7 of them, in order to commit the crime. Okay, you have to take it and carry it away, move it in some way, from any place. Remember, that's any place. It's the personal property of another without his consent, and it's taken by a person not entitled to possess that property with the intent. The person has to have the intent to deprive the owner of that property and then to convert that property to the use of the person who took it or somebody other than the owner. All 7 of those elements must be present or you don't have larceny. Now, with this tree stand you find in your woods, you're taking it from where you found it and carrying it away. Now, where you found it doesn't matter. It can be any place. And because it is the personal property of another, and you are taking it without his consent, and since you're not the owner, you don't have permission, and you're not renting it, you're not entitled to have possession of that tree stand. So you've already committed 5 of the elements. But the question is, do you intend to deprive the owner of his property for all times? That is element number 6, which rolls into number 7, converting that tree stand for your own use or giving it to somebody else with no intention of ever returning it to the owner. Now, there is a difference between borrowing something or confiscating property for short term, which is not a crime like larceny of taking the property with the intention of never returning it. My opinion is that if you're confiscating that tree stand for a short term as a tactic to try to locate the trespasser, or you take that tree stand, turn it over to the police, then you're okay. If you take that tree stand as punishment or payment in your mind for the trespass, and you don't plan to ever give it back to whoever owns it, then you've committed a crime. Now, you said you wanted to do this until the situation was, quote, resolved permanently. I don't know what that means, because trespass can always happen again tomorrow. I mean, how do you know if it's resolved permanently? But here's an idea. You could put up a sign where you found that tree stand that says, "Dear trespasser, I don't appreciate you trespassing on my property without my consent. I have your tree stand. If you want it back, come up to the house. We need to talk." Now, that message, directed to whoever the owner of the tree stand is, would keep you in the clear, may resolve the problem without involving the police. See, it could be that that person was given permission by somebody else and he really thought he could hunt on your property. You won't really know until you talk to the guy. But then Cliff Salient wrote back. He said, "That's exactly what I did. I put up a sign at the spot I found the tree stand. As of yet, I haven't been contacted. I have my gut instincts about this, but I don't want to assume anything. I have been putting up no trespassing signs wherever I can. Thanks for your help and keep pushing the envelope about sportsmen's rights." Well, Cliff, we still don't know. Did you take that tree stand down or not? But it sounds like you've covered yourself. It wouldn't be larceny as long as you're ready at any moment to give it back, and you make that option available. Howard Van Solkema is which one?
Me,
Is you.
yes.
And you got this bear in Dickinson County up, let's see, that was the 16th of September. This was no ordinary bear.
The 10th of September.
10th of September.
No, it wasn't. It was a bear that had been known in the area, but nobody that ever hunted in our exact region ever seen it come through that area. But
Now, how would people know it was that bear? I don't see any.
well, there's a club foot. There's no claws on one foot here. It has claws on the other, and it made kind of a limping. It limped a little bit when it ran, or it was a little bit out of balance.
Well, what would have happened to the claws? I mean, we don't
It
have.
could have been a trap, they said.
Really?
It could have been several different things. It could have been an infection where they would do it to themselves. But on the skull here, its tooth was in real dire straits, and it was broken off. And they figured, a lot of people said that he probably broke that tooth trying to get out of a trap when it was young.
That is interesting. I mean, traps. I mean, bear traps. Bear this age, they've been illegal for a long
It
time.
probably as a cub, it got into something that it
Like a
shouldn't.
coyote trap or something like
Yeah,
that, maybe.
Maybe a coyote
Well,
trap.
that's, I don't know. That seems kind of strange. You'd think a small trap like that, even a cub could yank it out. And
Yeah, you would think so, but it
boy,
all
this
depends.
reminds me of the. You heard that one about the bear with the bad tooth? But anyway, that's a that's a joke all into itself. The skull. How big is this skull? This is how they measure
Bear.
trophy bear,
Yep. This one is 21 and 14/16.
and that puts it where in the.
This year it's the biggest taken.
Now, where do they measure that 21 from?
Well, they go this way with calipers, this direction, then from front to back, and they add it together. That's how they determine.
I'll be darned. That is, so then you display this next to the mount?
Yes. On a plaque or on something.
Yeah, that's something. But this bear was, how much did it weigh?
Well, if you do like calculating the guts, it would be, they say about 647. They figure 19% guts in it.
So when they weighed it after you had field dressed it, it was 535?
Certified weight.
That's 535 pounds and 1 ounce certified.
Yep. We did that in Powers at the plant, at the packing plant.
Man, 640-pound bear?
You really should know. Getting him out of the woods was the job.
Oh. Yeah, for people who haven't, and most people haven't had much experience, but this is just like a big garbage bag full of jelly. I mean, they're not real rigid.
We had 4 of us in our hunting party, and if we didn't have 4,
Man, I guess. Well, that's
tremendous
something.
amount of work.
And this is your son?
This is my son. He was with me when I made the crucial shot, and he said, "Dad, I think you missed it." But I didn't.
You didn't? Did it go right down, and was it?
It ran approximately 60 yards.
I mean, you didn't have to go and taunt it or anything. It was
No,
dead.
when we
You wouldn't want this.
let it
situation
lay.
there. Man, that is quite a story.
We had two groups, and they were out hunting, and we waited. We went in and we waited a half hour or so. We went in, found blood, went back, and waited for the other group, and then
Chicken.
I know, and we were.
Wait for the other. Yeah, it's right down there. You guys go first. One last question. Did you eat the meat?
Yes, it was excellent meat. It was.
Do you have any left over?
No, it's all gone. We got 172 pounds of meat, and I thought it was excellent.
Well, that's all we need to know. A complete hunt. Very good. Hey, that's a great story. There you go. From DeWitt, Gary Doty traveled all the way up to Skegamog Lake, Antrim County, a lake you can see off of the highway there, I think 72. And it's a great lake for a lot of different types of fish. Long, narrow lake. He got this at the end of, well, it was probably opening day of bass season.
Opening day, yeah, opening day.
And the smallmouth bass, you can catch them in the middle of the day up there because you got this at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. 6-pounder, 22 and a half inches. This is one fat, thick, heavy smallmouth bass. What'd you
Yeah.
catch it on?
Bomber, crankbait, just casting.
Are you a smallmouth bass aficionado?
Well, we have a cottage on that lake, so I do a fair amount of fishing on that lake, and they actually did pretty well this year. So this was the biggest one.
Do you eat any of the smallmouth?
Yeah.
Because they are great.
I think they are.
They are awesome.
Well, we think so. I've had people say they don't think so, but we like them.
Well, a lot of people don't know that a smallmouth bass is in the same family as the bluegill, and these are the bigger end of the family, and they are excellent eating. So this one put on a performance for you?
I was by myself, and he had made a couple of good runs, and luckily I got the net on him, and I think it was about 2 casts later I threw the same bait out, and the line broke, and I lost. I got the bait, but the line broke, and so I was pretty fortunate, I think.
Well, it could be that the battle with this one weakened the line, though, too. You never know.
Could be.
Yeah.
He's a monster.
Yes, sir. From DeWitt, Gary Doty. That's a great story. That's a huge smallmouth bass. It's time for me to introduce a philosophical perspective on this show on a regular basis that's been brewing inside of me for some time, but I've kind of tiptoed around it. It's the relationship between what is ethical and what is legal. They're not the same at all. What opened my eyes to this is going to court where I cross-examine the testimony of law enforcement officers and COs. I listen to the arguments of prosecutors who try to condemn people based on what the law says, and I compare that to the traditional values that attracted me to hunting and fishing when I was a kid. Oftentimes, the letter of the law and ethics collide. And when these issues collide in court, it's ethics that generally always goes down and the letter of the law nearly always wins. Now that doesn't sit really well with me, because what's right and what's moral and what's practical and what's reasonable gets blown out by somebody's literal interpretation of the complicated wording of some law. Juries are not instructed to consider the intent of the law or determine the spirit of the law. Only the letter of the law is what controls. It's the words we look at that we pick through one by one, and we too often miss the overall thought. We dissect these long, complicated sentences. We get the dictionaries out to see what the various words mean, and we totally miss the simple ethical concepts that we should be promoting. We've gotten to the point where many hunting and fishing laws are no longer reasonable. They're no longer practical or logical. I mean, they're stupid. They promote the wrong values. So what's a sportsman supposed to do when he's faced with a law that isn't ethical, or a situation where law and ethics conflict? Well, I've been asked this a lot, and the problem has been that as a lawyer and a member of the Bar Association, I can't ethically counsel people on how to break the law and get away with it, but I can counsel you on your legal rights, and I can voice my opinion on ethics. Our logo for the Practical Sportsman Foundation says, promoting traditional values, protecting constitutional rights. The values are the ethics, the Constitution is the law, and I'm going to start talking about these two areas together, not as two separate issues, but together, and it's going to stir up some controversies. But we can't ignore these conflicts any longer because they're tearing the outdoors apart. For example, let's look at a video clip that Mary Acker took when she was fishing with her husband Rich last weekend on the Manistee River. She came across a young guy who caught a nice little brown trout. He didn't have a measuring tape. Nobody around him did, but one angler used a pocket tool that had inches marked on it to see if it was at least 15 inches, the minimum size for a brown trout on this river.
9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yep, you're good. You're about a half inch good. Thanks, buddy. Yep.
Is that the only fish you caught today?
Yeah.
The law says you can keep a trout that size. Purist fishermen say stream trout should all be released.
Sure is a pretty fish.
It sure
Can you
is.
get one shot of me and my buddy standing here with the fish?
Sure.
Pick her up, Chucky. I'm standing here next to you.
A 15-inch trout, minimum size, but Brian Heron and Chuck Moore are not only proud of that trout, they're going back to the campground to cook it. Trout fishing regulations are primarily influenced by fly fishing purists who promote catch and release. No big deal if that's what they like, but many of them would like to end the practice for everybody of keeping trout like this to eat. Now just say this trout was below minimum size, that it was difficult to get the hook out and it died. The law says you'd have to toss it back in the water to float away. No way could you utilize it for food. Well, how does that sit with you ethically? Most outdoor TV programs wouldn't show you a trout handled like that, put on a stringer. They always release fish, no matter what kind, so they can be politically correct. But if you like the taste of fresh trout, hey, that's one of the unique rewards of fishing. It's one of the things that makes fishing really fun for a lot of people. And I'm not telling you how you should think. You can make up your own mind. But as of today, I'm no longer going to tiptoe around these issues and skirt the sensitive things that deal with ethics and the law. It's time to identify the conflicts and talk about them together in a fair and balanced way. I'll be doing that on this show, on our website, and at our symposiums. It's a new way of thinking and something we have to do in the outdoors.
Share the outdoors with a youngster this weekend. It is a great place to be, and we'll see you right back here next week.